Welcome to GBN America. I'm Nana Akua. Brand Sussex. So determined are they to make their own way in the world and denounce all things royal in their search for privacy. They've clung onto their titles and monetised pretty much any aspect of royal life and gone on a global whinge fest. They've used their connection with royalty to bag an interview with Oprah. Let's face it, no one would have been interested otherwise. They've believed their own hype and created books, documentaries and a podcast, all of which received initial success because, well, they're royal. Although most weren't interested beyond that, as they've been dropped by Spotify and Netflix are likely to follow suit. So Brand Sussex has gone online, launching a new website using, yes, you've guessed it, their royal title Sussex and the royal crest. The site Sussex.com replacing Archwell. Palace insiders, not too impressed by it, complained. They're going to have real trouble with the use of Sussex, they said. It is a royal title, and if there is any hint of commercialism about this, it will be shut down. It's just staggering. They cannot see how much gauche it is, or how gauche it is. Well, I suspect the Duke and Duchess will argue it's their last name and their family name. But I'm not sure how they're going to get around using the royal crest. On the site, the Duke is described as a humanitarian, a military veteran, mental health advocate and an environmental campaigner. Meghan described as a feminist and champion of human rights and gender equality. Really? Humanitarian? Human rights? Don't make me laugh. That would suggest an element of compassion. And it's time for Meghan and Harry to show some, as many are questioning whether they have the capacity for it. What with Harry hot-footing it across the Atlantic for all of 45 minutes to see his sick father. Doesn't look great, does it? So that he could get back in time to present a fake and glitzy Z-list event without even mentioning his dad, which looks pretty ugly. And Meghan not bothering to see her father after his stroke. They've got everything. Looks, talent and wealth. They have the perfect family with two beautiful, healthy children, a boy and a girl. They live in the lap of luxury, unlike 99.9% of the rest of us. Money is no object. What's wrong with these people that they are so unable to acknowledge their privilege? Even ill health of family members isn't enough to shake them from their trance of self-pity. They've had to change Archwell to Sussex because, frankly, other than their royal credentials, they're really not that interesting. And I can now welcome, though, Michael Cole. He's a former BBC royal commentator to GBN America. Michael, welcome. So when it comes to Harry and Meghan, what is it that's lacking from them, or that we see lacking in them? What do you think?
Well, hello, Nana. I think you've summed it up very well indeed. The first thing to be said is that it is illegal to use a royal title or the name of a royal residence in order to sell a product. When the Duke and Duchess of Sussex scooted off first to Canada and then to California, which was probably always her intended destination, it was made clear to them that although they would retain the honorific titles, Her Royal Highness and His Royal Highness, their Royal Highnesses, they were not allowed to use those letters, very valuable, important letters, in that particular world in which they lived or did live. They're not allowed to use them for commercial purposes. So it is rather cocking a snook, as we would say, at Buckingham Palace and the royal family to bring out as their new website with, as you say, a coat of arms, this Sussex title. In fact, it's not correct to say that Sussex is their surname. Sussex is two rather lovely counties in this country, West Sussex and East Sussex. But Prince Harry's birth name was Mountbatten Windsor. That's the family name of the royal family of this country. It's the House of Windsor, but the actual name the children are born into is Mountbatten Windsor. So this is going to cause some annoyance at Buckingham Palace. Whether they will formally reprimand them and ask them to cease using it, cease and desist, remains to be seen. But it is not a good look, and it will not endear them to anybody within the royal family in this country.
No. You'd think that they'd just back off from that. Surely they should be happy with all the things they have. Now, Harry did visit his father for what is argued all of 45 minutes. Do you think this was a genuine dash to see his father or a publicity stunt? Because he left pretty quickly to present some other thing.
Apart from collecting 11,000 air miles, it's difficult to see, Nana, what was achieved by this flight over the pole to see his father that couldn't have been achieved by a 45-minute video call such as the one I'm having with you now. It is the custom in the royal family for male members to greet each other with a kiss on the cheek. Now, that could not possibly have happened because the king is undergoing treatment for cancer. And as many people watching this program will know, that infection has to be avoided during treatment of cancer. So there was no question of the king embracing his son, his prodigal son, when he returned to Clarence House, the official residence of the king in London, because Harry had been for 11 hours in a pressurized tube at 37,000 feet over the North Pole, flying here. So you say, was it for publicity purposes? I'm not sure about that. The prince sat very morosely, unsmiling in the back of a police Range Rover going to and fro on his flights. So one wonders why it happened. One would like to think it was moved by compassion because, you know, this is not a major crisis, Nana, but it is a crisis. The fact is the king completed a very successful first complete year on the throne when he went to Germany, he went to France, he went to Kenya, and of course he had his coronation. And it went very, very well. And now he's stricken with cancer. We don't know exactly the circumstances of that cancer, any more details, but the Buckingham Palace has been quite candid about the situation. And that is very, very difficult because the king has now isolated himself to some extent at his estate at Sandringham on the North Norfolk coast. That's 108 miles northeast of London, and it's surrounded by 20,000 acres that he owns. So he can be isolated there. But he has to come to London for treatment, and he came today. And during that visit to his London residence, I'm sure he will be meeting the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. The British Prime Minister sees the monarch once every week, usually on a Tuesday evening, because under Britain's famously uncodified constitution, the monarch has the royal prerogative, and that's in three parts. The monarch has the right to be consulted, in other words, to know what's going on, and the monarch has the right to encourage, and the monarch has the right to warn. And it was said during the long reign, the record-breaking 70-year reign of Queen Elizabeth II, that she only had to say to one of her 15 prime ministers who was expounding on what he was going to do, she only had to say, do you think that's entirely wise, Prime Minister? And perhaps raise an eyebrow for that Prime Minister to go away and think, well, is my policy wise? Those audiences, because that's the official term for them, are completely private. Nobody takes notes. It's only two people there. And there are never any leaks. But every one of her prime ministers, the Queen, the late Queen's prime ministers who has commented upon it, have said that they always found those audiences very valuable, almost like a student going to a tutorial with a professor. You know, the professor was marking their homework, so the Queen marked their homework.
Do you think that actually this is more him appearing to be working, but actually he isn't, and it's just like a facade to make us think that everything's okay? Because he was very open about the enlarged prostate diagnosis, but we haven't heard much about what specific cancer he has.
Yeah, I think you may be able to fault the king in many ways, but not for lack of work. He's very industrious, almost to the point of obsession. No, he will be working hard. He will be doing state papers arrive to the king in red boxes, and he will have been working his way through them. He really loves statecraft. He loves to be involved. He is very interested in many, many subjects. And I believe that the affairs of state will continue. But since the announcement was made that he was suffering from an undisclosed form of cancer, of course, his whole program has had to be rescheduled, and things will change very much so. And other members of the royal family, like Prince William, the heir apparent, will have to step up and do more. Of course, that's complicated because at the same time, his wife, the Princess of Wales, Kate, is also suffering, also an undisclosed form of illness. But without any doubt, Nana, the surgery she underwent at the London clinic was no minor matter. She was in there for 13 nights, 14 days, and we don't know what's wrong, but it's obviously major. She's now recovering up at their house, Anmer Hall, on the Sandringham estate up in Norfolk, near the North Sea coast. And we wish her well, of course we do. But Prince William's got her on his mind, of course, and bringing up his 3 children. Everything has changed. It's very, very difficult, and it's very unfortunate for the king because he waited 70 years to inherit this role, and he started off doing it very well, and now this hiatus, this pushback. But the affairs of state will continue. There's no doubt of that.
Yeah, and we all wish him well, especially from here at GBN America. Do you think, because Harry actually went back to see him, and there's a realisation with Harry that actually the royal family may need him to sort of step up, do you think there's a likelihood of that? And do you sense any thawing of relations?
No, in the words of Muhammad Ali, in a completely different context, there are 2 chances of that happening, slim and none. The relationship is very, very poor at the moment. The king was very wise. He always made it clear that his son was loved and would always be welcome, but quite clearly he doesn't approve of the things he's been doing. And the relationship that Harry now has with his older brother, William, is appalling. And I think Prince William's attitude towards his younger brother is hardening rather than softening. So there's no possibility at all of any sort of rapprochement. Interestingly, a poll of British people gave Prince William an approval rating of 74%. Yeah. And it also revealed that 66%, i.e. 2/3 of the British people, dislike Meghan Markle. I think those 2 figures tell you a great deal. And a recent poll in America showed a remarkable result that Prince William was the most popular man in the world, according to those people who were polled in America. And the approval rating that Catherine, Princess of Wales, has is something like 35%. That's a very, very high margin. So there's no doubt who's winning the public relations war. And it's not the Duchess of Sussex in their California Camelot on a hilltop with their rescue chickens and lots of celebrity friends telling them they're wonderful and that they do not put foot wrong.
Well, it certainly isn't. Everything is sort of working in reverse for them. Michael Cole, such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much. That is, of course, Michael Cole. Well, my next guest has taken to Twitter to express her thoughts on Harry and Meghan's new website. She said H&M hated our royal family, so seemed to be working on one of their own. They have a new website, Sussex.com, the office of Prince Harry and Meghan. It's full of exaggeration and pomposity and is a spiteful attack on the real royals who must do something. Angela Levin is a royal commentator and biographer. She's here. So, Angela, what's their ploy?
Well, I think their ploy, which has been going now quietly, perhaps undercover most of the time since they left the royal family, was to produce a different sort of modern, woke, trendy royal family wherever they are. At the moment, it's in America, so that's where they're trying to do it. We saw this in 2020 when they had a very big presentation of themselves in California, where there were lots of where people had died during the war, and they went round and looked at everywhere to do it instead of what we were doing in London. And absolute cheek to take the coat of arms, and it's just Meghan, it's not Harry, and put that at the top of their website. I mean, it's astounding.
Well, I mean, they would argue that the Sussex is their name and their family name, so them using that is fair enough. But I agree. How did they justify using the royal crest, which that is royal, and they shouldn't be using it? Why do you think they've chosen to go in that direction when clearly people aren't looking on them favourably?
Well, I think it's quite evil, really. They wanted to use all these things when they first wanted to leave the UK. And Queen Elizabeth, now passed away, said they can't use the royal family's name to make money. And now they're smirking and they think they can. Who's going to stop them? But what's awful is that they've picked a time where King Charles is unwell, and William is facing, looking after his wife and his children. They did the same thing with the late Duke of Edinburgh, and although he was dying in hospital, not to say that King Charles is dying whatsoever, but he was dying in hospital, and they went on Oprah Winfrey's show, and they made the royal family even more upset than what they were before.
What do you make of, because on the website they've described themselves, I think Harry described himself as a humanitarian and Meghan human rights, yet it almost feels laughable that they have the audacity to say these things when they're lacking, it would appear, any level of empathy for their own family.
Yes, well, it's a lot, they use the word compassion, but they've got it for maybe everybody else, but not for Meghan's family apart from her mother or from Harry's family. They are the biggest hypocrites ever known, I think, in my life. It's just terrible how they are behaving.
Yeah. What can the royal family do about it, though? Obviously, it almost feels like they pick a time when the family are powerless and then they go in, because the king is, at the moment he's struggling. Catherine is obviously unwell as well. The royal family are now weak because of all of this. It's almost as though when they're weak, they go in. It just feels awful.
Yes, that's what they did with the Duke of Edinburgh. They're doing it again. They see a gap and they're trying to fill it. I think it's really because they are, particularly Meghan, she has to win. She wants to be equivalent of a queen. She wants to rule everything, but she has no compassion. You think about what she's like with her father. He hasn't seen her grandchildren. And I think that she doesn't really realize what sort of human being she is. She's not kindly, but also she's not a feminist. She claims to be one, but actually she's married someone with loads of millions and is seeing her fortune that way. All the money most of the money that they've earned is by being thoroughly nasty about Harry's royal family. It's not someone who's really made herself. This is someone who's clutching on to something that is not hers and turning into vast amounts of money.
Although she would probably argue that she had kind of made herself. She was very doing relatively well doing Suits. I never watched the thing. I don't think I could watch it. But she literally hasn't come from absolute obscurity. She has worked hard and got her own stuff. But let's move on to Queen Camilla, because she has really shown her mettle over the last week, hasn't she? She's done all those engagements instead of Charles, and really feels like a glue that's kept the family together.
Yes, very much so. I mean, it's very interesting because when she was first asked, soon after her marriage, whether she would like to visit a charity, she said, "Oh, I'm going to the hairdresser one day this week and then seeing a friend for tea." So she had no idea. But now she told me when I was doing her biography, the more she's worked, the more she gets addicted to it and the more she loves it. And the more she reasons that the position she's in, first Duchess, now Queen, she can help people in a major way. She's done a lot with cancer, with Maggie, it's called, the company, and she can help Charles. She knows what will make him smile, his comfort, and she's sticking to him absolutely to be there for him. She wanted to be his rock, and she absolutely is. And he must be, without a doubt, so much happier that she is there.
Well, I mean, what is it that Diana said? She said she couldn't compete with that. That was true love. Even Diana recognised that, the two of them. Yeah, sometimes they're just two people that are meant to be together. And unfortunately, for anyone who gets in the way of that, for whatever reason, it's tragic though it is, they feel like they're meant to be together. What about the fact, though, that even whilst the king isn't well, and it would appear, as we hear, reports are saying that Harry didn't want to be in the same room as Camilla, though, when he came to visit Charles. I mean, and how do we know that?
Well, I think a friend told a friend told a friend, and it's got dribbling out. I mean, Meghan has been with King Charles nearly all the time that Harry has come, because really he's just been shouting at him, one demanding money and one demanding that he apologise for the bad treatment Meghan has had. That's not really true, because look what she's doing now. She's fine. But Charles loves Harry, loves him as a son, but hates what he's doing. And he won't let himself be drawn in. Whereas Meghan is just there quietly. She's not interfering, but she's just there. That makes Harry very cautious about what he's saying.
I don't know which one's worse. I mean, they seem both equally as bad as each other, and they feel like a toxic kind of combination together, which doesn't really bode well for the royal family. That's how I see it. But
yeah, it's very sad, because if you meet someone right, they bring out the best in you, and I think that this couple have brought out the worst in each other, and it's horrendous, and they turn everything into darkness except them, who are amazing. You know, the times that they feel victims, oh, the poor things, that's really an acting part of how they live. And the rest of it, they are global, honourable, amazing people that the world is so pleased to have. So it's all a sort of nonsense dance, really, that is so upsetting.
Yeah, it is. It's very upsetting. I'd actually like to see them happy and everyone getting on. And I can't bear the soap opera that we're watching, but it is quite addictive watching because. But very briefly, Beatrice and Eugenie. Now they're being urged to step up. Is that right?
They're a possibility, but I don't really think so. Beatrice is very stable, very good, but I think they wonder whether they will pass on to Harry all the pieces of information. They don't want to give them information to them, or buy, some Netflix will buy and give them another contract.
Yeah, well, listen, Andrew Levin, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to talk to you. The brilliant royal biography. She wrote Harry's biography, the proper biography, not some ghost-written thing. Andrew Levin, thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you. Well, if you would like to join in on the conversation, you can feel free and comment on YouTube at GB News Online, or why not follow us on Twitter at GBN America.